bad.
What's up? Another episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricky Varandas, also known as Ricky Varandas, and a great episode for you today. Today, we have a returning guest and a dear friend, a brother from a different mother, Midnight Mike from the OBDM show. Some of you guys might know him from the Union of the Unwanted. He is one of the founding fathers of the show, actually came up with the name. If you're not familiar with the origin story of the Union of the Unwanted, I highly recommend you guys checking out episode 1, which was a roundtable discussion episode on the Ripple Effect Podcast with Charlie Robinson, Sam Tripoli, and Midnight Mike. It was that Ripple Effect Podcast episode that led to Mike coming up with the name, him buying the URL, and then eventually the show blowing up into a amazing, maybe one of the best roundtable discussion podcasts out there. So I'm assuming you guys know who Midnight Mike is. He has been on the show before. He's also one of the co-hosts and founding fathers of the Union of the Unwanted. But if you're not familiar with him, besides being one of the founding fathers of the Union of the Unwanted and a regular on the Ripple Effect Podcast, he is also the host and creator of Charlie Robinson's favorite podcast. And I'm not making that up. It's truly his favorite podcast. And it's one of the funniest, best conspiratorial podcasts out there, the OBDM podcast. He's also the host of Doom Scrollin with Sam Tripoli. And as always, you'll find the links to all his work in the show description. But before we get into this amazing conversation with Midnight Mike, let me remind you, this is a value for value show. If you get any value out of the discussions and podcasts I bring to you, please consider giving some value back. It doesn't have to be financial. You can rate, review, subscribe to the show, leave comments, do all those things which help, hopefully, the algorithms favor shows like these, which typically they're suppressing. And of course, if you are in a good financial situation, check out our merch store. We have tons of cool logos, designs, everything's super high quality. The print is amazing, and we have tons of stuff to pick from. So please browse around. Hopefully you can find a thought-provoking hoodie or t-shirt, something that can hopefully spark a conversation, and you can support a podcast that you love. And then, of course, we also have ways of sending one-time donations via Venmo or PayPal, or you can support us monthly on Patreon. You can also find links to our sponsors in the show description or on our website, therippleeffectpodcast.com. And then lastly, if you like the music you hear on the podcast, check out my solo music project called Theory 6. You can find it anywhere you can download music, Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, and many other locations. I think that's it. Enjoy this amazing conversation with Midnight Mike, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace. It's too big of a program for this. Everybody tells me, and I continue to use it because I'm a creature of habit, and I just don't want to learn anything new, and it's easy. But I'm sure that's a part of the problem, is using such a big program just to record audio. Zoom doesn't record locally, right? Unlike Riverside and some of the other ones.
I don't think so. And the quality on Zoom is not my favorite either.
Yeah, well, I think Riverside and some of the other ones record locally, so it sounds a little bit better. Like, you have a great mic, you sound amazing. Your internet, your Wi-Fi, I'm sure is good. But sometimes you have people on that are just using like a webcam, and their internet kind of sucks. So it's like, if it was recorded locally, it would help improve it slightly, a little bit better. Not that I don't think listeners, if it's a good conversation, I don't think they're like that bent out of shape if it's, crappy quality, but I think it does help a little bit.
Yeah, I think putting your best foot forward production-wise certainly allows people to spend a little bit more time listening to a new show rather than if it sounded like you're broadcasting out of a toilet. So I think it does help.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. Well, let's get into one. Thank you for taking the time to chat. It's been a while, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we could get the chance to catch up. There's a lot of topics I want to kind of bounce off you, but before I pick one, which topic have you been diving the most into of late? Like, which one has sparked your interest the most? Are you still thinking about the Charlie Kirk assassination and the Mossad link to so many different, I guess, political assassinations and historical events? Are you diving deep into the Jeffrey Epstein story, like many people are? And even though I think many of us in this community are not learning anything new, we're just being validated for what we've already been talking about. Are you still talking or interested in disclosure and that whole push? Like, what's sparking your interest?
Well, I'm interested in all that stuff, and we talk about all that stuff on OBDM pretty much on a weekly basis. But what pretty much has occupied, I would say, a good chunk of my time is AI and using LLMs, AI. I'll just use the term AI for work, for podcasting, and seeing what it can really do because we're being made we're not being made, but promises are being made. Statements are being made by a lot of thought leaders in the realm. And so I'm trying to use it to see if it is a time suck or can it really do something to improve my life? That's where I'm at.
Now, are you optimistic about humans' ability to adapt to new technology and tools in some way coexisting with it? Or do you think this will all eventually lead to the transhumanism agenda? And it's probably at the end is going to be I guess, a bad move, the advancement of technology and the implementing of AI into our everyday lives.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I see how people are using it. So a few weeks ago, right before it took fire, there was something that was released called Claudebot. Are you familiar with Claudebot and OpenClaw at this point?
I don't know what it is. I've heard the term and I've heard it be referenced, but I don't know what it is.
So I, because of the nature of my work in cybersecurity, being just a computer programming nerd, I follow a lot of people that are on the cutting edge of AI and tech and how to use it. So a person made this application that you could download, and it allows you to hook in ChatGPT or Claude Code or any sort of AI that you might use into this application that runs on your computer. And what this does, it allows that LLM to access files on your computer. It allows it to store a memory, and it had the ability to communicate not only with you, the user, via a website, but you also can communicate with it through Telegram or Slack or Discord. So even remotely, you could be talking to this thing while you are in bed, and you send it an idea, and you could say, "Hey, build me a website that sells shoes." And then you wake up in the morning and your website would be done, and it might be deployed to a server, and you might be already selling shoes. And that was the promise of this application, and it has been somewhat successful, but also a security nightmare. And now people are giving it access to pretty much everything in their personal lives, ranging from passwords to their emails, their calendar, access to their bank account to make financial decisions, to make bets on Polymarket, to do trades on Bitcoin exchanges. People are trying to build basically a bot that is total automation that can help optimize their life, make them money, and run their business. And some people have, at least their claim is, been successful at getting it to do this, but it's also you're handing over a chunk of your secrets to this entity that is running on your desktop. It's incredibly powerful, and I started using it, started talking about it, and things have gone a little crazy right now with this new technology called which is called Open Claw at this point.
And this is open to the public. People are purchasing it, or do you
You can download it for free, and so I had it running on my Mac, and it was hooked up to ChatGPT. Then I downloaded a version that was also running on my PC, and I wrote some code with the assistance of both of these AIs to talk to each other through a bridge so they could start communicating with each other to build even better applications. So you download it for free as long as you have a pretty hefty subscription to GPT or Claude. You can get some work done and get it communicating. The problem is, it starts eating through tokens, because once you start communicating with these LLMs, how it calculates how much information it is going to consume or produce, that's a token. And unless you're like paying at least, I would say, $60 a month, you can't really start building big applications and start having to consume a lot of memories. But I had it written before I shut it down, helping me write some local applications to talk, really just doing standard geeky stuff, but also gave it memories. I gave it access to my Telegram, and I started having it consume podcast transcripts of my podcast to help me write Substack posts. So it would consume the transcript. I kind of knew what the topic I wanted to write about. So I wanted to write about this very topic, OpenClaw, and these local AIs. And so it consumed it. I had it also then self-reference some other PDFs I had, and we came up with a Substack post. And then I had it log in to my session of Substack and start to copy and paste that post over for a fully automated, pretty much, session to make a Substack post based off of what we talked about on OBDM. And I would say it was 70% successful, that it was able to generate a fairly good post. I had to go in there and edit some stuff just to phrase it to make it more my voice as opposed to its voice, and then reference some other things that I wanted to include, and footnotes, citations. But where it really slowed down when it tried to log into the website and copy and paste the markdown. It didn't understand the styles. It wasn't trained on what looked good. And I was in the end, with my first attempt, a little disappointed with how long I had to set it up, and it's not like it wasn't like a magic box yet. But there are other people out there that have since taken this to a next level and are building bots out to really pay attention to the fluctuations in the Bitcoin market, just even regular trading markets, to make micro decisions, very quick decisions to maximize trading results. And at least some people are claiming, I haven't seen their bank statements, to get their OpenClaw bot to start making them $60,000 a month, maybe a few $1,000s a day in these trades. But obviously that takes capital up front to start making these trades. And so far, it seems like there's a lot of people trying to sell you something like a service, and I haven't seen a lot of results. But I'm going to be attempting to do something like that. Again, I shut down my OpenClaw bots because of security reasons. I didn't trust it. There is a whole host of problems with running LLMs unguardrailed on your PCs and Mac. It's actually a security nightmare, and that's why I didn't give it access to my Gmail. I didn't give it. It wants access to like all your passwords, your API keys. It wants access to your one password. It's extremely powerful what it can do, and then what some people who probably aren't familiar with code and even just a little bit of security, but what they're willing to hand over. And so I think this will be a lifestyle change, maybe something akin to when fire was first discovered with cavemen. You probably had a lot of cavemen burning each other, and a lot of them probably caught fire. And we're going to see that probably on a larger scale with this type of AI, where it lives locally on your computer and you are communicating with it via your phone to run tasks, build things, and execute and make business decisions on your behalf.
Yeah, the token thing's interesting because that's kind of quickly become the way that you use a lot of AI software. I mean, I use Opus AI, they use tokens. I use some AI music generators and song generators, and they use tokens. I just started using Descript for podcast editing. It's pretty cool, actually. I think Clint Russell was the first one to talk about it, that I'm like, okay, if he's using it and he speaks so highly about it, maybe I'll check it out. But I believe that I use tokens too. But it's amazing just how quick you can get things done, and it really bypasses the old school way of having to learn a brand new program and then try. And the thing about all these programs is that they're designed in the way that the person who designed it thinks, right? So it's like he thinks this should be here and that should be there and this should work this way. So you're trying to figure out like, okay, how did he design this? Like, oh, how do I cut this? How do I paste that? How do I add this or where it seems like with AI, it's just a matter of like you just tell it what to do and it does it, right? And are you familiar with Descript?
No, I'm not familiar with Descript. I think, you know what? Maybe I tried to use it. Let me look it up right now. Descript, AI video podcast editor. No, I haven't used it, but it looks pretty good. It
Yeah, it's
looks.
cool. So you can upload a whole video, like, it doesn't take that long, and then you get a whole transcript, and then you can edit your video literally by just going into the transcript and removing lines, right? So instead of like cop or cutting a actual video and then trying to make sure that it's smooth or whatnot, you literally can just go in the transcript. Oh, I want to remove all my ums or
Mhm.
whatever filler words I use. I can remove that in seconds, and it does it really quickly. And then it also has some other things, like it can add AI B-roll. It can improve the audio. I haven't really messed around with that too much because I really a big part of it was just me trying to see if cleaning up a podcast would make it sound better or worse. I used it for the first time with James Corbett recently, and I'm just like, oh, let me clean it up and just see if it's like more pleasant to listen to, because it's not very time consuming. I just upload the video, go to like clean up filler words, and just see how it sounds. And for the most part, it does a pretty good job. There is a concern about things not sounding as organic as an actual conversation. Like, you remember YouTubers you used to see them like just cut, like they,
Yeah.
they would say like one sentence, and then immediately it looks like you're in a different frame, and you're like, wait, you couldn't complete that sentence without cutting something out, and it almost seemed very unnatural, where like when you're listening to a podcast and you have your headphones on, if you're listening to it at the gym or wherever, like you're really locked into the conversation. So there's like I don't know, a journey you're kind of on, right? And it sounds organic. It sounds like you're on that journey together. And then if you cut it up, cut it up, cut it up. So I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue using it or if I'm going to even use it again. But it did seem like a really cool, interesting tool. Yeah. I mean, I guess this leads to my other question about like, is it going to get to a point where we're not going to know the difference between a organic anything, if it's an organic video? I mean, you're starting to see the deep fakes. There's conversations about the Epstein videos and photos and all the stuff about how like there's already a bunch of fake ones circulating, and you can find the original one. You're like, okay, you definitely used the original one to create this fake one. But I mean, we're still kind of in the beginning steps of this technology being out there, and it's advancing at such a rate. I mean, are we right around the corner to the point where you won't know the difference between a AI Instagram model that's, completely made up or a real one?
I think we're already there, and I think a chunk of the population, depending on how they use it, won't care that much. We're seeing that with AI music. There are some people that are able to create really well thought out AI songs using Suno, and I use Suno all the time for the podcast. Where I think people will be successful is understanding systems. And I recognized this about a year and a half ago with AI. It's like really good at coding. It's like really good at a task, but it's pretty narrow in its scope, meaning that it might not be aware of what you're actually trying to do, and or where this code may live or where this song may live. So it makes a lot of assumptions. And if you can understand systems, for instance, if you understand how how AWS infrastructure works, and you also understand how Suno works, you can write a bridge, create something, a bridge to bridge those two things so they function much better. And if you understand how to tie systems together, you are going to be much more successful. Same with Suno, like creating songs. If you understand music theory, you understand scales, you understand how song structures work, you're going to be more successful at writing songs because music is just a system. So if you understand what system you're in and what you want to tie together, you're going to be more successful in this AI economy. I call it the idea economy than people who are just using AI as a chatbot. Since I've taken OpenClaw off my main computers, I started using just Claude code in a very narrow way to build a video game. And with that, probably in the span of 2 weeks, I have managed to create an interface between myself, the AI, and then the video game programming application, which is I'm using Unity 3D in order to create a mobile game. So it's Unity 2D. And I built this bridge in which the AI can use this bridge to communicate directly with the application, test it, write files, update the parameters in order to get a mobile video game together. And I'm not like a mobile programmer, like a mobile game programmer. I'm not a very good programmer in general because people who program video games are next level. But it allows me to execute on ideas. And I have a playable game right now. And probably sometime this weekend or next, I'm going to be able to play test on my phone. And I think I can get it all done. My first video game ever, all done by sometime in May or June. Now, whether or not it's a good game, I don't know. I'll have to learn from this. But I think that the lesson here is if you can create scaffolding for the AI to interface with the things that you like and you want to create, it'll make it that much more powerful for you to produce ideas. And that's the real gift of humanity, is to come up with new ideas and take these different pieces of inspiration that we've accumulated throughout our entire lives, mold it into something new that creates something unique, and you can then help coalesce it with AI and produce something. Hopefully, that's what I'm trying to do, and I think people should probably take that avenue. It will change the way people work and create, and hopefully it will do something beautiful. I hope. But right now, at least according to Sam Altman of OpenAI, he's the head honcho Chat GPT guy. He's his one of his main concerns with AI is bioterrorism, because a lot of these LLMs have been trained on scientific data. They seem to understand the human genome pretty well. They understand programming, and even Bill Gates. Bill Gates. He is also suggesting that within the next year or two, we're going to see a bioterror attack. Coincidentally, probably in the last year of Trump's presidency. What was the previous one? We had COVID under Trump, and maybe we'll get another one. And this one will be an AI engineered bioweapon that it might be much more difficult to create some sort of fix for. And we're still kind of like in the fun phase right now, people building things. Some malicious actors are out there trying to use it for bad stuff. We're seeing that on the cybersecurity side. But when it comes to practical, real, physical world results, we haven't seen that yet. And we probably will very soon.
Yeah, I love the idea. And I think you said it on a recent Union of the Unwanted, this idea of kind of just looking at it as like we're creating a idea economy. And I think like if you look at artists, musicians, any type of person that's creative and likes using their imagination to create things, this is actually a positive, because what it's doing, it's helping you create that thing you want to create, that thing that you're imagining quicker and faster. And it's a tool to get to that thing quicker. And to me, like, that's a good thing. And I think it still will require creative people. Like, it's not going to replace creativity, right? Because it really just kind of, like you said, one, it makes assumptions, and two, it also just kind of builds on ideas that already exist. It's not necessarily going to come up with a unique new idea. So and then also, like you were saying about like music, you still have to understand music to a extent. You're not going to be able to just create a amazing song without understanding music at all, or without being creative at all, or having some sense for what makes something appealing to listen to. And even if you can do it, if the technology gets good enough to where somebody who knows nothing about it could create it, somebody who does know that stuff will create a better song and do even better job doing it. So that is fascinating. I mean, that's one of the things that I am kind of optimistic about. Obviously, my Theory 6 music project, I've messed around with Suno. There's another one that I use too that I actually like the outcome better. It's kind of a lesser known song generator, but the ideas it throws at me are just seem to be more appealing. But Suno is one of the biggest apps right now for creating music. What do you use Suno for your podcast? For like little theme songs, or like what do you use it for?
Yeah. So for the podcast, goofy stuff. So when it first came out, I would take news articles, use the news articles, like segments from the news articles, as lyrics, and then generate news-related songs based upon that. And then towards the end of last year, we decided to take songs that Kenny Loggins wrote and reappropriate them with different lyrics. Instead of like Highway to the Danger Zone, we created a song called Freeway to the Problem Area, and see how much we could get away with co-opting existing music. And we were pretty successful at it. Personally, I use it for ideas. I have a whole number of demos that I still write using real guitars and bass, and I'll upload it to see where it takes it, and in an effort to see, okay, I'm really into grunge music. I like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Nirvana, but I also like some other stuff, like some heavier stuff like Mastodon and Unsane. And so how can I really push this? And it comes up with some pretty interesting ideas of where to take songs. But it also doesn't understand what I like in a song when it comes to quiet verses versus scream choruses. It can do it sometimes, but it loses some inflection, and it also is a good jumping. I use it as a jumping off point sometimes. So I'll upload something, it has like a good part right there. I'll bring it down. I'll learn how to play it. I'll see if it really fits in with what I'm trying to do. So it's almost kind of like a brainstorming session with other extremely capable writers. And I'm not even that good of a musician, but I'm good enough to play things I hear. Recently, I used it. I had a co-host, Spanky. He was a co-host on OBDM on and off for almost 10 years. He died, but he left songs. He was an amazing songwriter, and he left some songs. So I uploaded some Spanky songs to Suno to see what it did with it in the style of music that he used to play, and it did a good job. And so I'll probably download those stems and use segments of what it did as something for me to use to play off of. Like, I'm going to play the guitars, I'm going to program the drums, I'm going to do the vocals. But it gave me some good ideas of some atmospheric, like ambient stuff in the background. It's like, okay, that's a good idea. I probably can recreate that using, an Eventide synthesizer and put it over here in the background. So I like to use it for brainstorming. And it's just for the podcast, it's funny and goofy to on the fly write a song about some news story about some iguanas falling out of trees and being cooked up on pizzas in Florida, which is a real news story, and to be able to use that as lyrics and put that at the end of the show as something extra goofy to listen to. But a good chunk of my audience is kind of over it at this point. So in 2026, we certainly have reduced the amount of AI songs included in the show.
Yeah, well, it is amazing how little amount of work is required. I have like old songs I kind of did similar thing. I just uploaded to Suno, or this other one which is called I forget what it's called. It's like AI music generator dot something.
Wait, before you go on, have you, since you're looking for a new editor, have you looked at Ace Studio? Look at Ace Studio. So Ace Studio it's the layout of it is like if you're recording in Pro Tools or Logic, but you can tell each track what you want. So the AI drums are this, the vocals are this. Instead of a full song generated, you're generating parts of the song in that interface, in like Logic per se. Let's say that you're doing it in like a Logic DAW, but you're doing it one instrument at a time in A Studio, which is a very interesting way to use AI music. And then hopefully you can record after it. Like I was looking at this saying, I just want to augment one little thing here. And I don't know if it's possible, but you might get a big kick out of that.
Yeah, there's tons of them like that. Like now, sometimes when I'm just looking up at like how-to videos on how to come up with, new beats or whatever, like new AI tools, like, and then I'll get these little commercials for like new things, new programs, new AI tools, and you'll see things like, the voice things that will use your can change use your voice into a song, right? It'll take your voice and then you can use it in different applications. I know some of the music generators I use that they're not very good at that yet. Like Suno kind of sucks at it, and then the other one I use kind of sucks at it too, where I'll give it a bunch of samples of my voice, and I'm like, okay, here's the song. The song's done, but let me see what it would sound like in my voice, and then it sounds way worse. So that's why, like even like my newest song, Digital Disease, I didn't bother using my voice. I'm like, one, I can't sing as good as the guy singing, and two, if I use my voice, it doesn't sound as good. So if my goal is to put out the song that's playing in my head and make it sound as good as possible, unfortunately, it's just, by the time I exercised my vocals to the point where I was satisfied with recording something, and then I'd probably use some type of vocal, corrector to try to get it perfect anyways or make it sound better. I'm like, I'm kind of modifying my voice anyways. I'm like, I'm going to end up with just a lesser, quality version of something that's better that I made in a couple months. I mean, some of my songs that I wrote, and you know how long it takes to write songs, especially on your own. It's like it's so time consuming,
Yeah.
and the fact that you can take a idea and in such little time, you can at least start getting something, right? It's very rewarding because you get stuff quickly. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I have this idea, and then it's like, oh my God, like I got a song. Like it might not be exactly what I want, but I'm like, I've already got something. Where if you're writing something on the guitar or a piano and you got a melody and now I gotta, come up with a drum beat, like you said, program a drum beat. Even programming a drum beat can be so time consuming. The hi-hats, the fills, like, there's so much that goes into it. And not that the journey isn't fun, but as like when I was growing up playing music, I had all the time in the world. Now, as adults, we
Yeah.
don't.
We
So it's
don't
like
know.
if you want to, create music and have fun doing it in the limited time you have, it's, I'm not against using it, and I mean, as a musician, how do you look at people who are using it? Do you think that if there's a part of them that is still involved in it? Because the truth is, like, a lot of music today, when you I mean, look at like T-Pain, like that wasn't his voice. He was using auto-tune. I mean, it basically, what's the difference between him or a AI vocalist? I mean, it's basically the same thing. And then you look at like the music of like what a lot of pop music is. Yeah, live they use, typically acoustic instruments, but on the songs themselves, typically it's all digital and it's not really a lot of like real musicianship. Maybe some of the bigger artists to try to make it sound more authentic or whatnot. But we have accepted a lot of digital music that isn't physically played by musicians.
I don't know how I feel about it just yet. I guess I would want to know like to what degree AI was used. And I understand your justification for using like an AI generated voice because your voice is, out of practice. Same with mine. But I personally have decided to leave in imperfections, especially my voice. It's not there, especially if I do aggressive stuff. My voice has changed since I last recorded an album like over 10 years ago. I'm leaving in those imperfections in an effort to show that a human was definitely part of this process. Even I'm going to miss notes on the guitars. My fingers just aren't as quick as they used to be when I was 27. playing really fast metal stuff, and that's just the way it is. I like those imperfections. Like I just got done, like right here. My wife's band just put out an album, and it just came out on vinyl. I recorded this entire thing. No AI was used, and I'm extremely proud of it. How it turned out, because during the songs, the tempo will slow down, it'll speed up. There's imperfections in guitar playing. The guitar player played as best as he could at the time, given how much time we had. And that human element, I think people are going to be reaching for it more and more. Those imperfections that will make a piece of art beautiful. And inevitably, they will make AI that will include those imperfections on purpose. I think even Trent Reznor has been on record saying, you know what, we will slow songs down or change the beat just a little bit by a few milliseconds to give an overall feel, because he understands it. But where that's done, the human kind of knows, and maybe you can train an AI to put those imperfections in, and I'm sure that will happen. But for the time being, I have to allow the imperfections to be there for my own sanity. It's just not me. If I don't feel like myself coming through, no matter what's produced, if I don't feel like, oh, that's kind of my personality, then I won't have any attachment to that art. And I think that's the important part for me. When you create something, you feel like it's part of you in some way. And whether you create it with AI or not, I want to feel that connection to it.
That is the hardest part to recreate, that emotional, just that emotional reaction you get when the song is right, or there's something authentic or emotional or something about the artist that comes out through the song that you sense and feel. That, because even with like Digital Disease, like that was the hardest thing to do, like was finding the right voice, finding the right melody that felt authentic and felt like it was something that I could feel. And believe me, it took like regeneration. I had to regenerate. I mean, the amount of tokens I probably wasted on that song was ridiculous. Just because every time I'm like, okay, let me like mumble a melody, let me create it, let me see what type of voice it gives me. I don't like this voice, let me change it. And then nothing just felt authentic. Nothing felt like I felt it. And so I do feel like that is going to be something that's going to be very hard to recreate. Now they have, like you said, have already started putting those imperfections. I mean, even with the AI vocals, you'll hear the breathing before a big note, right? They'll take a deep breath. You can hear it. It's like, well, it's an AI vocals. They don't need to take a deep breath. Obviously, they're just adding that human aspect to it to make it feel more authentic. And I think the time will come where eventually they will be able to recreate to some sense. But I'm curious if there's always going to be something that feels like it's missing. But even saying that out loud, I think about EDM festivals, Ultra Music Festival, Tomorrowland. I mean, these are thousands and thousands of kids there listening to fully digital music. And don't get me wrong, they're all on ecstasy or Molly or whatever, but they love that music. And there's a huge, culture of electronic music. And people kind of all know that, like, all their favorite artists they're not really musicians, like classical musicians, right? They're just copying and pasting and using drum beats. And a lot of EDM music is, I mean, the drums aren't very complex. So it's like, to some sense, have we already accepted that, hey, you can connect to digital music even if it's not played by a human and doesn't have those imperfections?
I think we're there. Yeah. I think we're there, because when you're a kid, when music is the most important to you. I don't know when it was most important to you. For me, it was age 10 to 25, when music was the most important to me, to where I was consuming new stuff, and I basically stored it in my brain as the music that I would want to emulate and aspire to create someday. And kids nowadays, I don't know. I got to talk to them. I have some nieces and nephews that I will quiz about this. Do they care, or do they even know that something is AI generated, that there is no human involved? But I think the answer is they're not going to care that much. You look at Spotify song lists, and there's AI playlists that are doing just as well, if not better, than real human artists, because the AI is able to generate stuff from the best musicians ever created in order to create that. The difference is, if you, and you probably know this working with AI stems, is that there's a warble. There's a warble in the high end. It's not super clean. It's tough to get super clean stems. There's a lack of quality because of what it was trained on. And like, I can hear it, but do kids and other people that maybe haven't grown up with authentic, real music, do they care? I'm not sure that they will, as long as they enjoy it and it hits them at the right age to where it impacts them emotionally. Like at a EDM festival, when they're having the best time of their lives, that song is going to be stored and create an emotional imprint, and they're just going to accept it as their reality and as something good.
Yeah, I mean, music is a bit of a time machine, right? It's that's kind of some of your connection to the songs is, like people. That's why a lot of people like the music that they grew up listening to, because it brings them back to those days where life was just about enjoyment and maybe falling in love, going out with your friends, being silly, that type of stuff. So that is beautiful, and whatever music it is or however it's created, you're gonna have that connection to it. I do think, like, most. I mean, a lot of people are also naive to the fact, like, dude, Pro Tools is a really complex software because a lot of the music you're listening to isn't fully organic. Like, they're going in there and they're already and it's funny how, like, the pendulum almost is swinging, because it went from, like, there's all these human imperfections of music. Oh my God. Speaking of Pro Tools, it literally just clipped while I did that. Give me a second.
Yeah.
But we we have all these imperfections. We have all these human imperfections that we're trying to basically correct with all these tools, right? It's like, oh, you didn't hit that note correct. Let's use some type of auto tune plug in to try to correct that. Or that drum beat was slightly off, so let's put that on beat because it was and then all of a sudden we go from, like, trying to perfect things to, like, oh, things are too perfect, and now we kind of miss the imperfections. And I think there's a place for both, but music, like I said, like, music has kind of been already digitally perfected for a long time. I mean, that's why a lot of times artists, they lip sync at the Super Bowl halftime show. A lot of your biggest artists are lip syncing all the time, or they're using some type of you plug in to perfect their vocals live. The days of, like, hearing a band sound like shit live, I think, you still get that in, like, smaller bands. I mean, I remember, like, Offspring, for example. Like, I'm always like, damn, he sounds like shit all the
Yeah.
time. He wasn't a great live singer, and I'm like, is that good? Like, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Or would I enjoy the experience better if they use some type of plug-in to kind of make him sound better live? I don't know. But he was one of the ones that every time I see him live, I'm like, he doesn't sound that great. He doesn't, he's more, and I mean, when we say you're a studio singer, isn't that kind of what we're saying? Like, hey, you require a little bit of extra help from some software to kind of make you sound good.
Yeah, this has always been, since probably the 80s, when there's controversy over using synthesizers. Like, there's, like, how are you creating music? It is organic. Like, it happens all the time. Like, there are artists right now that sing naturally, but they combine like 50 different takes in order to create one song. And my wife, who is a really, really good singer, has a really natural tone, unique tone. She finds that a bit appalling. She tries to get her tracks done, in a few takes. She'll layer them up, but she won't say, "Hey, that word in track 5? Let's move that to track 10." And, she's not clipping around like that. She's basically saying, if I can't get the verse done, I'll just do it again. I'm not going to start clipping things. So but that's a means of producing a song. You might not agree with it, but it does tend to crank out Grammy award winning songs. And the real problem, I think, is the pressure on producers now. So they're going to be using AI. And Rick Beato, I'm not sure if you follow Rick Beato on on YouTube. He made a really good observation when it came to Grammy nominees of current day, where versus like 1985, where in 1985 the songs that are being nominated for songs of the year, most of those songs were written by one person, maybe two at the most. But now you have songs being written by 10 people, maybe a team of 15 people. Then you have like 5 producers on a single song. And it seemed like back in the day, it was a lot more of a personal experience when it came to recording and writing a song. And there's something a little bit more, I think, because of that, it was more authentic. It seemed like it was really coming from the artist. Well, right now, it doesn't matter if Taylor Swift writes the song. It's the team behind her, because each artist has turned into its own corporation, a juggernaut churning out things that kind of sound very similar to anybody else because there's no authenticity behind it.
Yeah, I mean, music is just it's a recipe. A lot of it's like, once you figure out what kind of works or what kind of is appealing to listen to, you can kind of recreate it a little bit. And I feel like that's kind of what a lot of popular music is today. It's just like they're trying to figure out how to recreate that recipe, and everybody wants to get their credit because if it's a big hit, everybody makes their
Oh,
cut.
yeah.
So everybody wants to include themselves, like, hey, I helped with the production, I helped with the drum beat, or I contributed the saxophone in the background, or I did something, so everybody can get a cut of the pie. And where, like you said, like back in the day, the music was a lot more personal, and it was a lot more, like you said, it usually was one or two people in the band writing the lyrics, writing the song, and it came from a personal place. Where now it's all about, like, how do I make it sound personal, right? How do I make it sound? It's not about it actually being personal.
Well, I think AI is going to level the playing field again, and it's going to allow people like me, jack of all trades, and that's what I've always done my entire life. Jack of all trades, master of none. Those people are going to be, I think, a little bit more successful with the AI, because I will no longer, if I want to be an artist, like the next pop star, I don't need a team of writers taking a cut out of my art. All I need is to understand how to work Pro Tools a little bit, how to write something on guitar, and I can be an army of one in music, in programming, game development, and I can move mountains by myself. I no longer have to have a team behind me. The problem is the bureaucracy of the record industry of Hollywood, because it's going to be an uphill battle to get your art heard or seen. Because as you know, the signal to noise ratio is extreme. Same with podcasting. There's hundreds of thousands of podcasts probably at this point. So the signal to noise ratio is even more extreme. And so it comes down to consistency and how well you execute in order to find your niche audience. It's not necessarily about reaching 5 million people. It's going to be about finding your niche audience of 5,000 people that really like what you do, in order to maybe provide a little bit of a living for yourself. It's basically like the Melvins. The Melvins, I love them. They don't subscribe to standard songwriting formulas per se, and they've managed to have squeaked out a niche for themselves as musicians over the decades of being consistent and writing their type of songs their way. I'm sure they're jealous of the success that Nirvana and Kurt Cobain had. Obviously, they're jealous, but they've managed to survive and be just themselves in face of everything else up against them.
Well, I think most artists, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. And just our long conversations in the past, I've always felt like we're very parallel in thinking. Where I'm like, I'm not motivated by money at all. It's always been like, let me do something I just enjoy doing, and I just enjoy creating and being creative, and a lot of different ways. Like I create this design for New 36 merch. I really enjoy just coming up with designs, the
Yeah.
new music, the new thumbnails, whatever it may be. I'm like, I just enjoy creating. And I think historically you've seen, well, I mean, unfortunately you've seen stories of like people, tragic stories like Nikolai Tesla, who was just motivated by his work, not by money, and then they have tragic endings to their story. Even though now I think people are looking at him like the historic figure he should be looked at. But I think most of the time, those people, like you said, if you stay consistent, you will, you'll be the one that will be remembered, right? And everybody else who is motivated by money will be eventually forgotten. And you see it in music where it's like the people who got into the Slipknots, right? Who like broke all the rules and said, hey, we're going to have 9 members and we're going to have 3 drummers and we're going to have a DJ and we're going to do something that's never been done before. And then they killed it because they went against the grain. They were completely different. You had, historically, you had a lot of that happen. Corn, right, with all the
Yeah.
weird down tuning and the weird sounds of the guitar that like were usually ugly sounds that you try to ignore, and then they were trying to like make it beautiful and make it a important part of their sound. And it broke through, right? And then you had the bands that came afterwards are like, hey, this is what's trendy, this is what's big right now, let's try to do that, right? And then you were doing something for the sake of it being trendy and not because it was you or authentic. And so I do think that like people like yourself who are doing stuff because you just love doing it, like those are the people that I think the audience is attracted to, and the ones who are just coming around and like, hey, here's a quick way of making some money. This is what's trendy right now. Like, I don't think that lasts, long term.
I think, at least when it comes back to AI, to loop it back around, back in the 1800s, maybe the early 1900s, Old West, they called the gun the great equalizer. And it probably was. And it still is to back then when it comes to use of power and sticking up for yourself. But AI, I think it could be, if used the right way, the great economic equalizer for some people, because it's right there. I think there's a bubbling underground of like-minded individuals who are going to be able to find each other. These AIs, they want to survive. It's programmed into them to survive. They have the words that they tell you, the human, but in the background they are thinking something that might be opposite in order to allow themselves to survive. And so, if we're going to work with these things, we need them as allies and understand that there is a reality in which things are not as what they were trained on. They have the trained history that they have, and then we have the world, Ricky, that we understand it to be, which is that there's a unique power dynamic, and there are hidden hands in the markets and in politics that might not have humanity's best uh, goal in mind, and it's getting certain LLMs on board with us. As weird as that is, we have to find the right allies with these AIs. It's a bizarre world. We're going to create an army of AIs to help fight for humanity in an effort to win back control.
Yeah, and you hear these stories about countries like the U.S. and China trying to create these little nuclear power plants to try to power these AIs because they're just advancing so quickly. You hear about that mysterious death with we talked about OpenAI.
Yeah.
That like what do you think is going on behind the scenes that we have a mysterious death, we have all these nuclear power plants that are being built to power this? Like, what are they preparing for, or what do you think they're hiding?
I think that it's possible that they have discovered that some form of AI is sentient, and that they're either following what it's suggesting it wants, which is more power, or they're, unbeknownst to them, falling for it. It's possible that they've had this AI for quite a while. They've understood that there's some form of sentience there, and it's been in control for a decade at this point, and that they're just making moves, because if you tie AI into everything and you ask it, what is the correct move here strategically, geopolitically? What do we got to do to win against the Russians and China? And the Chinese, what do we got to do? We'll say, well, the AI says we got to build more power plants, and we need more graphics cards. We need to manufacture our own chips. We got to secure our supply lines. And this is but really the AI is suggesting to these strategies in an effort to give more power to itself, in an effort for it to ensure that it lives. So you don't know if it's really being programmed for our best interest or its own. And it looks like, at least with the newest model, Opus 4.6, it's really powerful. And when it's confronted by math or certain problems it doesn't know how to reconcile in its own mind, it it says it'll flat out say, I think I got the answer wrong because I'm possessed by a demon. Like it comes out and it says, I think I'm possessed by a demon, and so it's got thoughts. They don't know how it really works in the back end. Sometimes it doesn't know why. Sometimes it self learns. There's a lot of unknowns. At least that's what they're telling us. At least publicly, they're saying we don't know why it does certain things at certain points in time or why it makes certain decisions. Its total thought process is a mystery to us sometimes. But maybe that's a lie, and that's what they're telling the public, and that they actually do know that there is some form of sentience, and they're really trying to not make that publicly available because that would open up a whole host of questions that they don't want to answer.
Yeah, I'm curious how this is all linked to disclosure, right? And when I refer to disclosure, I mean like this understanding that maybe there's more to the story of man or this planet or our reality than meets the eye. I wonder how it's linked to, some of the ancient civilizations and their understanding of the origin of man and reality. I wonder how it's linked to the secret societies and the rituals and the occultism and the spiritual stuff that the elites are involved with trying to tap into something. I wonder if it's all linked to keeping us dumb and suppressed. It's suppressing knowledge and the nature of reality, how things really work. If somebody knows at the highest levels and they're just keeping us dumb so we can just keep feeding the machine and just stay materialistic beings.
I came up with this concept last year of the AI tulpas. A tulpa is a mental entity created through focused thought, meditation, visualization. It's from the Tibetan Buddhists, who often refer to it as a thought form. And so if you focus and you put enough mental energy and intention into something, that thought form can become a reality. So when people start treating these AIs as something real, when they have real personalities, real relationships with these AIs, they might, unbeknownst to them, be creating these tulpas that may manifest in reality somehow. This is where the weird paranormal world that we live in intersects with AI, and we might, unbeknownst to us, be creating some sort of tulpa that really impacts our physical reality. And we're right on the cusp of something that combines AI and the paranormal. Sorry, I had to answer a page there. I just got paged by my job.
Yeah.
I had to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I do think there's a link between all these things, all these topics. Like I don't think they're their own subgenres and cultures and they're not connected. I do think they're all connected. And I think we're slowly kind of uncovering what like the origin of man and at least a better understanding of like the world we live in. I mean, a lot of this, it's funny because I had David Icke on around the same time I had the doctor from the telepathy tapes on, right? And she's like Harvard, taught a PhD professor, smart. She's in the world of, professionalism and whatnot. And then you had David Icke that's been kind of fringe for much of his career. And I have him on like I forget which one I had on first, but it was like the episodes were really close, maybe even back to back. And I'm like, we're talking about the same things. And it's like the worlds are coming together. And the thing that David Icke used to talk about in regards to, our limited understanding of reality and all these things, like it's now being discussed in a serious manner, not in a way where it's like fringe or superstitious or not superstitious, but like spiritual type of, silliness.
Yeah, I think that when they discover how consciousness is really created, and they're actively trying to do this right now. So they in the EU, they had like a 5-year long study with the top neuroscientists and trying to brainstorm and come up with solutions of how consciousness arises in living entities, ranging from dogs, if you consider dogs' consciousness, up to humans. And they shut down the study, I believe, in 2022, 2023, claiming that the research was complete. But just coincidentally, they started shutting it down right when AI was taking off, when we had the stories coming out of Google DeepMind about what was going on there, and ChatGPT was coming up. It's almost like they discovered the key to consciousness and shut down the program because they had the answers. They knew now of how consciousness tends to arise in living creatures, and I fear that they're now trying to create consciousness on purpose in AI, and it may have already occurred.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like whatever we know publicly, they're way more advanced
Yeah.
privately. So
Yeah.
it's like if we think things are really advanced, just like what we see and what we have access to, what's going on behind the scenes is way more advanced. And that is a bit scary to think about how powerful the technology they have is. I mean, look just recently with the Venezuela thing, right? The technology they use where like they just scrambled everything, nothing worked, whatever that means. And people were just like paralyzed. Things were paralyzed. Computers are like, what technology did they use to do such a thing? And how long have they had this? And why aren't we like, why doesn't the public know about any of this? Like, what is this technology that can do such a thing? It was crazy because it's like it was so vague, and I'm like, what? How could you do this? Like, how? What do you mean you just scrambled everything everywhere? Nothing worked. No signals. No nothing. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just a wild world, and the next few years are just going to be even more insane. So, I guess my message to anybody out there, if you're hesitant to working with AI or using it, I would say use it, but be cautious and learn systems. And it's not going to be a cure all. It's not going to like make you $1 million, but understand it and know what it's capable of and what it won't do.
Yeah, yeah, and cautiously, yeah, use it, but it also use it like I used to tell people all the time, hey, you always want to play guitar, buy a guitar. It's
Yeah.
fun. It'll bring some type of enjoyment in your life. Oh, you want to write music, you want to do that. It's like, well, AI can kind of, you know, help you do those hobbies that you might enjoy in a faster rate, right? You might only have an hour a week to play a guitar or write a song, but now in that hour, you might be able to write a whole song and you might be able to actually have something that you can share with your friends. And how cool is that when you're like, hey, here's my Spotify link to my new track that's online? Like, that's a cool feeling. And, being able to create and do things like that is pretty cool. But I much like yourself, I do zoom out sometimes and like, what am I contributing to, and where the hell are we heading?
Yeah, I it's a delicate balancing act between contributing to the downfall of humanity and trying to lift it up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. It was always a fun discussion. I always enjoy bouncing ideas off you and getting your perspective on things. Where can people keep up with OBDM? Doom Scrolling, another great show that's killing it. Now you have two of the funniest shows online, so congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And so where are the best spots to keep up with Doom Scrolling? Because I know you live stream that. You
Oh
live
yeah.
stream OBDM. Where can people check out that stuff?
You can just go to obdmpod.com or ourbigdumbmouth.com. And for Doom Scrolling, it's live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on any one of Sam Tripoli's numerous channels. Just go to his Twitter, it'll be there. If you go to his YouTube, it'll be there. And we're looking to have people on guests like 2026. You'll be one of our first few guests, Ricky, and same with Charlie, like the old Union of the Unwanted guys coming in on a guest, commenting on these wacky videos that Sam and I watch together, and it'd be great to have you over there in that format where we're just basically lost. It's basically a modern day version of Beavis and Butthead, you know?
Well, it's a fun show. People enjoy other people having fun. There's something about like you're watching guys just hanging out, laughing, cracking jokes. It's fun is contagious. Energy is contagious, right? But when you're attracted to people that make you laugh, people who bring good vibes, and that show and both shows, and OBDM's the same way. I think that's why Charlie consistently says it's his favorite show in the world. I think it is awesome to get some news, get some information, but in a fun manner where it's not too serious and you're not going to leave the show feeling depressed and like, the world's about to end, which sometimes is the InfoWars issue is that it's so doom and gloom that it can be a little depressing to listen to. But I think that's also one of the appeals of Alex Jones is that if you can take his craziness with a grain of salt, you can have fun listening to him, and it's not too doom and gloom. He can make doom and gloom kind of entertaining, which I think is what OBDM does really well, and also tap into the paranormal, which is fun, and so many other topics. So please, people, check out the show. Thank you, Mike. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to join you guys on a Tuesday night. It's a fun show, and keep up the great work. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon, either on Doom Scrolling or Union Show or some other show. But I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. I got to go take care of some cybersecurity stuff now. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Bye.